Hey everybody, welcome to week 8. So we're halfway through the semester. Can you believe it? It doesn't even seem real, and yet here we are. This week we're going to be talking about individual and interpersonal sexuality. When people think about, I'm going to take a human sexuality class, this is sort of the stuff that they think about. This week we're talking about what are people doing with each other? How are you putting your body parts on each other? What are the sexual things that you're doing? All of that is encapsulated in this 1 week. But again, this is only 1 week out of 16, and so human sexuality is much more than what we think it is, but this is generally what we think of when people think about, I'm taking a sex ed sort of class. Like relationships, what we talked about last week, sexual behavior can be organized in different ways according to who's involved, right? So there's individual sexual behaviors, stuff that we do with ourselves, by ourselves, for ourselves. Dyadic sort of behaviors, two people, not two or more, two people involved. So that would be a dyadic sort of two people, whether that be boy, girl, boy, girl, gender non-specific, other sort of things. And then there would be the multiple partner sort of category. So that would be the more than two. So 3, 4, 17, whatever you want, in that kind of way. So when we think about sort of individual sexual behaviors, the most common way that people experience individual sexuality is through fantasies. People fantasize for a lot of reasons in a lot of different ways, a lot of time, spaces, and other sort of things. One thing we know is that people fantasize differently based on gender. Now, again, this is not a biologically driven sort of thing, but what we've been talking about in terms of socially constructed ideas. We tell men that they should focus on these kind of things and women should focus on these kind of things. Well, what things? When men focus in fantasy, they often focus on people's bodies, particularly women's bodies, and what they want to do with them, right? And this is what we think of when we kind of think of like porn imagery and that sort of stuff, of what is happening, sort of the nitty-gritty sexual action sort of stuff. Women tend to focus more on how someone, usually a man, will make them feel. So the sort of romantic, soft side of these sort of things. Again, these are not innate born traits. We don't have sort of the gene for romanticism or the gene for sexual sort of kinky porny shit. Instead, the fantasies come from the ideas that men are not supposed to be romantic and women are not supposed to be sexual, which we have built into our society. Now, what do we do with fantasies? Well, we do a lot of things, and the reasons why we do them. Part of the reason that we fantasize is to direct and define our erotic goals, right? When we're thinking about like, hey, I'm kind of bored. What do I want to do? Oh, maybe I want to have an orgasm. And so we'll say like, okay, what's going to make me feel like I'm going to have an orgasm, whether I'm touching myself or other sort of things. We use it to direct and sort of define like, okay, orgasm this way. This is what I'm going to think about, those sort of things. We use it in terms of planning and anticipation. So maybe you're at the end of the day and you're like, when I go home, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get some candles and I'm going to do this sort of thing. And then I'm going to do this and then I'm going to have an orgasm, right? And so oftentimes we use it to sort of get ourselves hyped and ready for different sort of things. Sometimes we use fantasies for escapism. Maybe we're bored. Maybe we're sitting at home because it's COVID and we are really tired of doing work. And so then we start thinking, what if some stranger came in? Ooh, right? And then that's how we escape and get out of sort of boredom. Sometimes we use it for enhancement. Maybe you're already going to town. Maybe you're masturbating and you're like, woohoo, this is good. And then you're like, I'm kind of bored. Well, let's think about something else, right? And so then we start making up these sort of fantasies, and that enhances the thing that we're already doing. And so that's what I use it for. Finally, we often use fantasy for forbidden exploration. There's things that we might want to try, but we're not ready yet to talk about them, right? You're like, I've heard that sometimes people will lick each other's buttholes. That sounds kind of gross, but also kind of exciting. And so maybe you might fantasize about those sort of things, right? And so thinking about these different sort of things is a way to explore forbidden sort of desires and other sort of things. We often do these, just by ourselves as we're with ourselves, but we can also use them with another person, whether it be in our heads, we're still just thinking about this while we're with another person, or we're speaking it out loud to the person that we're with. And so you can use sexual fantasies in dyadic or more, but most of the time it is happening within yourself, and that's why it's considered an individual behavior. Sorry, had a brain fart. Erotic dreams are an extension of sexual fantasies. They're just happening at a subconscious level. And so oftentimes people like to track erotic dreams because oftentimes that forbidden exploration of things that maybe your brain desires deep down inside, but you're not yet ready to admit, come out during erotic dreams, right? And you're like, wow, why do I keep dreaming about this one sort of situation? Well, maybe that's your brain saying, hey, I really want to do this thing. And so people like to focus on those sort of things. And then finally, when we think about sort of individual behaviors of sexuality, we often think about masturbation, right? We've talked about masturbation in this class so far. Masturbation is a good and healthy and normal practice for all genders. And it's an important sort of thing in terms of getting in touch with your body. There's a video this week that I want you to watch that has 33 tips for how to masturbate. If you are somebody who's like, yeah, I masturbate all the time, I don't need it. There's still some cool tips in there that you might be able to enhance. If you're still somebody who's like, yeah, that still feels kind of weird to me, or I don't really know why people do that, or I'm not sure if I can do that. There's some good tips in there to try and get you used to the idea of masturbating. When we look at masturbation statistics, we know that people across all ages and genders masturbate. There's some statistics in the slides from the National Survey of Sexual Health and Behavior from Indiana University. I helped work on this project when I was at Indiana University doing my PhD, where we looked at sort of people from all across all age ranges and asked them questions about masturbation. Again, this idea that, yeah, sex is something that you do your whole life. It's not just something that stops when you get old, whatever old means. Anyway. Now, when it comes to sexual behaviors with other, whether it be dyadic or whether it be multiple partner, there are some different sort of things. Foreplay. Foreplay is all the things that lead up to sex, but doesn't necessarily have to lead to sex. Foreplay is a fun sort of thing that people can do for a lot of different reasons. And there is a great video about foreplay in this week's videos. Oral to genital sex. So oral to genital sex from mouth to penis would be called fellatio, or blowjobs would be the common sort of terminology. There's a video in here about how to give a good blowjob. It's not what you think, but I'll let you discover that. And then there's also a video about cunnilingus, which is mouth to vulva sex, and some tips and tricks there around how to give good oral sex to somebody with a vulva. P and V sex, penis and vagina sex. I don't have a video for that because it's the most common practice that we all know about, we've all heard about. If you have questions about that, feel free to shoot them to me, but I think we all pretty much have a good grasp on what P and V sex looks like, has, and all these other sort of things. Finally, we'll talk about anal sex. What? Butt sex? Yes. There's a lot of stigma still around butt sex. It's seen sort of as taboo or kind of gross or kind of kinky or all these other sort of things. But in reality, butt sex is just another kind of sex that people do. There are 2 videos for butt sex this week. One of them is just sort of the anatomy of butts, what you do with butts, how to have a clean butt if you're going to play with butts. And the other one is specifically about oral to anal sex. This is putting your mouth on somebody's butthole. Again, a lot of people are like, oh, why would you do that? Well, one of the reasons is because that you have like a billion nerve endings in your butt. And so touching and stroking and licking somebody's butthole can feel really good. And so if you want to try that, or if you want to learn more about it, there's a video this week on how to eat ass. And it's a really good video. Even if you're like, yeah, why would anybody do that? It's something to explore. Finally, there's some stuff around sort of multiple partner sex. I have 3 different videos for this. The first one is around threesomes. What are threesomes? Are they good? Are they bad? Are they something you should do or shouldn't do? Well, there's another sort of video in there that's talking about sort of the good, bad, and the ugly of threesomes. There is a video on swinging and what is swinging, and it's kind of into that monogamish sort of area of like you have a partner, but maybe you have sex with other people. What does that mean? And there's a video about swinging. And then finally, there's a video about group sex and orgies, right? Everybody always thinks of wild, crazy times of orgies, right? But what does that actually mean? What does it look like? How do you plan for an orgy? What are sort of the rules and the etiquette around sort of multiple sex partner sort of things? And so this week, lots of videos that are good with other sort of people talking about these sort of things. Finally, when it comes to sexual positions, people often want to know what's the best position, what's this, what's that. There's tons of sexual positions. We're generally only limited by comfort and our physical range of motion. Obviously, if you can't do the splits, then that's going to limit some of your motion that you do. If you can, then awesome, do it. There is no sort of limitation other than what you feel comfortable with in terms of sexual positions. There's tons of videos out there about different kinds of sexual positions. You can look on YouTube for hours and find them. I don't have anything for you because I don't really want to tell you how to have sex because that's weird. And so you can look on the internet and other sort of ideas to think about different sort of sexual positions. All right. The term paper for the semester is a little over a month away. So I'd just like to start telling people that of like, hey, remember that thing that you said you were going to do for your term paper? Start thinking about it. If you haven't done it already, start working your way towards that. I know sometimes it takes courage and preparation to do these sort of things. You have a little over a month to do that. So you want to make sure you do the thing so that you can write about the thing. Don't wait until the very, very last minute. All right. I will see you next week. Bye.